Many of you know here on the show we love to share a lot of royal secrets, and I don't mean that in a nasty way. It's just fun secrets that of course we find out as you delve into the archive, and more importantly meet people that were there, literally relevant at the time of those goings on. I've often said I'd love to have known and had a sit down with our wonderful late monarch Queen Elizabeth II and just chatted to her about all those wonderful people that she'd met. Many of course that went through history, through the throes of time, and a lot of people have now forgotten about, but she literally stood, met and chatted to them all. Even if it was for a brief second, it would have been memorable for that person. But what did she remember about meeting that particular individual? Whether it be somebody like an astronaut, a great athlete at the World Cup or something like that, or Sir Stanley Matthews, something, related to football. I mean, I was lucky enough to meet Sir Stanley, and he said he never got over meeting Her Majesty the Queen. It was one of the highlights, he said, of his career, and you can imagine. So it's always fascinating to find out other little bits and pieces, particularly about the monarchy. Now, as we know, a lot of people realise that the late Queen Mother, Queen Elizabeth the Queen Mother, was instrumental in, shall we say, having an iron fist on running the monarchy. Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, was very vocal about that in the latter part of his life. What was interesting was to find out, the things that they liked off camera, as it were. Now, take a look at this particular picture from 1953. It's a very special picture for that particular lady in the picture because she is none other than the wonderful singer from over here in the United Kingdom, Anne Shelton. Now, for those that don't know, Anne Shelton was, some might suggest, a small rival to Dame Vera Lynn, both vying for the same thing way back during the war years. And of course, both were equally popular. Nothing wrong with having rivals. You have it every single time, whether it be Jane Mansfield or Marilyn Monroe. Everything has a rival, right? But according to a very well-placed source, you see, the Queen Mother, Queen Elizabeth, was a huge fan of Anne Shelton's voice, as one can imagine. Now, Anne really found fame in 1940 while appearing on a BBC radio variety show, Monday at 8. She was spotted by the celebrated band leader Bert Ambrose, and her life changed. By the middle of 1940, she had her own radio show, rivaling Dame Vera Lynn's, called, of course, Vera's was Sincerely Yours, and Anne's was called Calling Malta, broadcasting to all the boys and girls stationed out there with requests and live singing. Of course, after the war, things were very tricky for these divas, simply because people associated them with that particular era. But naturally, things moved on. Anne came into prominence really because, of course, her 1956 hit, produced by the legendary producer Joe Meek, he of Telstar fame, Lay Down Your Arms and Surrender to Me, was groundbreaking and gave her the smash hit that she so duly deserved. But Anne, you see, had been asked to perform on numerous occasions in front of the Queen Mother, and it was the Queen Mother's insistence in the very first coronation year Royal Variety performance in 1953 that Anne was included in the lineup. You see how this works now. Now, as we know, Queen Elizabeth herself had her favourites. She loved George Formby, liked old Mother Riley films, and was a big fan also of Anne Shelton, but was advised by the then Prime Minister to just stick with one singer, namely Dame Vera Lynn, who they had a very good close friendship with throughout the rest of their lives. But it's always nice remembering, as I say, other people that have influenced the British monarchy, and Anne Shelton certainly did that. Finally, having had a mega successful career, appearing with everybody from Benny Hill to also almost going on the fateful tour alongside the band leader Glenn Miller, which she had to pull out for at the last minute due to illness. Well, she finally got her OBE in 1990 and apparently was incredibly thrilled. Now, I met Anne very briefly at a garden party at one of those charitable events for variety artists. Down to earth, funny, big-hearted, and more importantly, supremely talented. You could understand exactly why the Queen Mother liked her. She said it as it was, but had a bell-like clear voice that so many people enjoyed throughout so many years. So while many people literally look towards Dame Vera Lynn as the voice of the recent D-Day commemorations, there were other people out there as well, simply doing their bit, making sure the boys and girls out there had some comfort listening to music that they really did want to hear. And more importantly, isn't it fascinating to know that the Queen Mother, secretly, on the advice of others, decided that perhaps Anne Shelton was the voice that she liked to have blaring out of the Buckingham Palace wireless all during the war too. Neil Shawn in the very heart of London.